All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the European LCS. Now, I'm Devin Pyrotechnics Young. I'm joined here by the one and only Yamato Cannon, coach of Meet Your Makers. First of all, I just wanted to ask you a pretty big question. You've had a fairly long career in esports in particular. You've been around, you've seen a lot, you've done it all. What have you learned? What's the biggest thing that you've taken away from your career so far?
I think the most beautiful part about just League of Legends is that it has grown into something more than just a game. It is a lifestyle at this point. Like, when there was a person last day that told me that basically he no longer plays League of Legends, he just watches League of Legends. And that is the same for like every other big. So for me, League of Legends is a lifestyle.
Very well said. It transcends just the game itself, of course. Now, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the new roster changes you have made. JWoww coming in here for MYM. What do you think he'll bring to the team that MYM was not able to?
Well, basically, the biggest thing that it's going to bring into the team is a new spark. We need some new motivations for the rest of the players, most particularly. And he's going to bring in the skill and the knowledge MYM is still going to provide, since he's going to assist me coaching. So that's kind of a perfect combination. Simply because JWoww is very known to have a champion pool wider than I don't know what. Like, it's insane. He plays Victor. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but just a little sneak peek. Huh?
Spoiler alerts, indeed. So I also wanted to ask now, you guys have had some rough games. You have not been able to find wins too much lately. What are you going to do different in this week?
Well, we're going to try our best. If I have to reveal more than that, I would have to charge for it, you know? If I reveal more, it's kind of, you know, business.
You got to keep that on lockdown for sure. So is this the week that you start to make a comeback?
Hopefully.
We will indeed see. And last question for you now. How is the weather up there?
Well, come on, man. I'm supposed to do this here, man.
It's only a short way indeed. Now, to send it back to the start of this next game, we'll head over to Quickshot and Deficio at the caster desk.
Thank you very much, Pyro. I've never seen an interviewer have to hold a microphone above his head. Right, MYM and Gambit have both had shaky starts to the split, but it's Gambit that has turned things around. They've got themselves 3 straight wins. Meet Your Makers, they're still stuck at the bottom of the table. They've got themselves a 0-4 losing streak. Let's take a look at Meet Your Makers. They have made a roster swap this week. They do have Horo in the jungle, Corey in the mid lane, Mr. Rolls and Nisbet, AD carry and support. We just heard from Yamato Cannon as the coach, and the new face is JWoww, coming in from the challenger scene and also replacing MYM.
Yeah, replacing MYM. We heard Yamato Cannon just say how MYM is now the assistant coach, so all the knowledge he can bring is still there, but JWoww, he's going to bring a new spark to the team, some motivation, a bit like what Kevin would bring to Elements from what we've heard from Wicked and them.
Yeah, we'll have to see if it works out for Meet Your Makers. Somebody who's having a larger impact is Mr. Rolls when he doesn't play Sivir. You know, this is a guy who's really not showed up, unfortunately, during the course of the Sprint Split.
Yeah, support changes for Mr. Rolls so many times. 4 different supports in the last year for him. It's made it very hard to actually stay at the top level as an AD carry. And then just MYM as a team, there hasn't been any synergy or teamwork for them, so it's been just like, you're kind of on your own, and as an AD carry early on, that's very tough.
So their opponents have earned themselves some teamwork and synergy. It is Gambit Gaming. Unfortunately, because of Nick's illness, he's also been substituted this week. So let's pull up the roster card for Gambit, Cabochard, Diamond, Pinoy, Edward, their coach, Leviathan, and a new player on the roster is Betsy in the mid lane.
Yeah, young challenger mid laner, plays mainly assassins. So a bit like what Nick tried to do, but didn't really accomplish too much. Betsy comes in here. Great mechanics, but very, very little experience. And obviously never played in the LCS before, so he's probably going to be very nervous going into this week for Gambit.
Well, we'll see how he handles his nerves. He is coming up against a team who has been struggling quite significantly. Yeah. MYM 1-7 at the moment. And as we said, they're on a 4-game losing streak. Gambit, 3-game winning streak. The one thing I do want to highlight, Nidalee, I think is going to be important. Diamond had a phenomenal performance last week. And we're actually seeing Nidalee bans, which I was not expecting during the course of today's games.
No, Nidalee still being a very strong pick. And yes, Diamond said, why wouldn't you ban it against me? I will take it every single time and I will beat you. Another champion for them, or for Gambit, is Kalista for Pinoy. Played it last week in both the games. Had a very good game, and should we say a lackluster second game for him where he actually fell behind, but it's still a champion that's so hard to deal with if he gets rolling, and I think Pinoy is going to go for it again today if it's open.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if he picks up that Blade of the Rune King again.
I mean, it is his style, it's fine.
Regardless of who he faces. We're about to jump into picks and bans in a moment, so I'll be talking about them at the for the time being. JWoww is going to be up against Cabochard. Cabochard's been running that top lane Morgana, really the only team in Europe that is using it I'm not going to use the word regularly, but more often
Yeah.
than we've seen elsewise. So we'll need to see if JWoww's wide champion pool,
Victor.
as Yamato Cannon puts it, will be able to deal with Cabo Shard. So, Meet Your Makers versus Gambit. Both teams with the substitute, both teams looking to get some more wins on the board.
Yeah, especially for Meet Your Makers, now that Giants managed to beat Elements. They were actually going to be the team where MYM were fighting against to avoid that number 10 spot in the league where you get automatically relegated to the Challenger Series. So time is running out. They have to pick up some wins against the Gambit team with a sub. That might be your best bet.
So we'll see how the picks and bans play out. There's Assassins that you talked about for Betsy.
No Civic for
Becoming
Rallis.
smaller and smaller. The interesting note about that Civ is we're not particularly big fans of it. Mr. Rallis on Civ, he has played it 4 games. He's got decent stats. He's 10, 5, and 18, but it's not game-changing.
No, she requires a team that she can actually help with a utility, and it requires some good teamwork to come in, some synergy, which is not what MYM have. They need strong individual champions who can play a bit of an SK Gaming style, like a 1-3-1, where you just rely on your mechanics and, again, not your synergy to win the games, because it's still a bit of a mess for MYM, and obviously not going to help that synergy by bringing in a complete new guy in the top lane.
Well, Thresh, the most played champion for Edward. 4 games out of his previous
Kalista
7,
Morgana
8.
would be open for Gambit.
And we'll need to see what they decide to play out with. Ari was the final ban from Gambit. Insta-lock Xerath. First pick Xerath, a blind pick Xerath. It has not been particularly successful.
No, but in this case here, you have 4 mid lane bans. And again, you have a new guy in the mid lane for Gambit. So this also to take it away from him and on to Corey, who's had some good games, but not really had any impact compared to what we saw last year. And actually not going for Kalista, despite it being open for Gambit here.
So Pinoy wants to take that Graves away from his opponent. We touched on Diamond Prox's Nidalee. It was beautiful to watch last week and instrumental in helping Gambit take down Elements, if memory serves correctly. 6-0-3, and we'll see if we can do that again.
Yeah, his Nidalee was fantastic. Actually went for Rod of Ages after completing Magazine.
Quite late.
So very late for him, a different build from what we have seen, but because they got to that late game point where it was fully stacked up, it actually paid off for him. This Graves, it kind of explains the Severe ban, because normally Kalista would actually be a counter to her because you can dodge the boomerang very easily. So by banning that and then taking a Graves, you kind of again move away, you move Mr. Rallis away from, should we say, playmaking AD carry in some way where he can do that 1-3-1 and just rely on his mechanics to win. Instead, Corki. So a siege comp coming from MYM. Fantastic strong mid game, but we have seen this before from them where they failed to use their power spikes and just ended up losing.
Yeah, we'll see if Meet Your Makers can gain any sort of advantage. Wave clear, not the strongest for Gambit Gaming at the moment. They've got themselves some good bursts. They've got themselves some poke, if they want it, in the form of Diamond Prox's Nidalee.
So, Ezreal mid here, we have seen it today already from Nuke Duck. And we have seen more and more teams talking about these double AD compositions, but in this case, if they pick Ezreal here, while he can farm against the Xerath, he's going to get pushed into his turret over and over, and that turret is going to take a lot of damage, and then it's a very easy rotation from MYM with the Corki to pick it up, and you have way more poke than Gambit is going to have just because you have a Graves already locked in on their side.
Well, I'm not entirely sure I like that Annie pick for Edward either. You've got range poke, double AD with a Graves, which is non-traditional as well. If you're going to go double AD, why not first pick the Corki? We'll see how this works out. MYM have rounded out their siege poke power with some hard engage and a very aggressive front line. The dive buddy combo of Rek'Sai Aurelia is going to be very scary if MYM can get the very squishy side of Gambit behind.
Yeah, keep in mind, there's 0 peel from Gambit. They can take Morgana here as the last pick if they want to, but into an Aurelia, that's a tricky matchup for her. Would provide a Black Shield, which is enough to stop the ZC coming from a Leona-Aurelia combination onto, let's say, the Graves or the Ezreal. But MYM actually have a lot of options here. They can 1-3-1 with the Rek'Sai in one lane with his ulti, obviously Aurelia the other one, and then you have that massive amount of AoE damage from the Corki Xerath, the long range poke, the wave clear in the mid lane to push down. Or you can just go 4 together and just have the Aurelia on her own in a 1-4. So there's a lot of options here for MYM with their comp.
I have no idea what Gambit are putting together in this team composition. They've now rounded it out with a Renekton. If they do not get a lead in the laning phase,
on MYM,
this is a very, very awkward team composition. However, if Diamond can use Nidalee's early presence, which is lower in 5.3, maybe. But I don't know if I like this.
No, I agree. I mean, Gambit is is not going to win due to the team comp. They're going to have to just outplay MYM as either individually or just as a team, be better, you know, at shot calling, rotations, everything. Because you have an Ezreal mid lane who's going to get pushed in by the Xerath, and then you don't really have any proper wave clear to stop that MYM siege coming in around the 15-20 minute mark. At the same time, you only engage, well, your main engage is going to come from Annie, so she's going to rely on having flash ready if you want to hit the backline of MYM. Otherwise, Leona and obviously the Irelia is just going to turn it around every single time, dive the backline with zero peel from Gambit, and just pick off a squishy target, because Nidalee, Ezreal, and Graves are all going to be easy targets for Irelia as long as she gets a good start to the game.
We just caught a glimpse there of Leviathan. Last week when we spoke to him, he was saying that in the Gambit camp, their motto is it's a process. And we'll have to see if their process has led them to discover something that maybe we don't know. There are your team comps, hashtag MYM win or hashtag GMB win. You've got a much more, I think, succinct team composition from Meet Your Makers with their new man JWoww on the top. In Gambit, they're going for a little bit more of an individual play team comp.
Yeah, the only thing I actually would have loved to see from MYM was like a Janna pick instead.
And it was hovered.
It was hovered, but they went with the Leona, which doesn't really fit into this siege combination with Corki and Xerath. Janna here would have made it nearly impossible for Gambit to ever engage. What is the Renekton going to do? Slice and dice in, Monsoon out, you're done. That's it. Sending the next guy, okay, he's going to die because he's at 80 carry. Or Nidalee who's full AP. So I really feel like that would have been a better pick.
Yeah.
But now, if you do manage to land the poke from Xerath and Corki, you have that hard engage option.
Yeah.
And then you have the Rek'Sai and Irelia following. Still for Gambit, I really want to see how they play. When you play double AD, it's all about, again, playing where your dual lane is, because you need to make sure they're safe and they can push their lane, get the outer turret down as fast as possible, and then obviously have your Ezreal in the mid lane being joined by this AD carry later on and take the second turret, and you take 2 outer turrets. You ignore your top laner. He can just do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. You take first 2 towers, and then you take the wards, because you need to flank ward all the time when playing double AD. I'm very sorry for keep talking here, but this is actually a very interesting point. So you need to ward your flanks, which means once you take down the first 2 outer turrets, you push up to the next wave, and again, you get these deep wards in, and suddenly you can keep going in towards the turrets. So that's why they picked Renekton, to just sit on his own and survive.
Well, we did have a bug splat, but Deficio has ranted his way through the little pause, and we are into game. We are into game as Meet Your Makers take on Gambit. I do want to touch on something you did highlight. The vision is going to be important for Gambit, and the one thing I like from Leona is it can punish misplays and positional errors, which is something Gambit has been very, very guilty of.
That's true.
In multiple games in the past.
Yes.
So let's keep that in mind in terms of playstyle. However, both teams have replacements. We are on to the Rift.
Yes, we are.
For Meet Your Makers, who are currently 1-7 in that relegation spot 10th, whereas Gambit 3-5 with 3-game winning streak. They're looking to make it 4.
Really like your point about Gambit. They have a unique ability to do everything right, and then randomly get caught out and die and lose the whole advantage. Can't do it in this game. So much damage and CC from MYM to catch you out. 3 stuns, 4 even with the Leona having 2. Obviously, the knock up again from a Rek'Sai. I really like the team comp. It's the same every week. I actually like MYM's team comps here. Yamato Cannon is doing a great job with his players in the pick and ban phase, but they just can't use it in the game.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Decision making is seemingly holding them back. Let's take a look at how these lanes are shaping up. Very defensive wards, with the exception of Eddie being a little further forward. Going to try see if they can get that lane swap in play. Eddie starting with those boots. Deficio, do you like it or not?
That is very, very risky. Not having any combat stats. He's going to get in a 2v2 lane as well. Normally, if you have a lane swap, then the boots can help, because you can now start roaming around on that Annie, which is the thing she's very good at. But now in a 2-2 lane, they won't really offer him anything other than maybe dodging in and out of the range of a Leona, of a Zenith Blade, so get like auto attack, then back away before she gets in range to try and lock you down. But you can see Eddie as well. He's trying to set up a freeze here. That's not going to happen for him, because it's going to be a 2v2 lane. No golems or grums being killed by either of the dual lanes, so just completely standard XP.
Well, we'll see what Pinoy and Edward can do. Eddie, with those boots, maybe he's going to be looking to dance around the Leona or try to roam around and back up his other 80 carries. Cabochard, we just caught him teleporting down. So we're going to see, again, duos in the top lane top lane is in the bottom lane.
Again, not really sure what the Gambit were aiming for here. Maybe they were expecting MYM to be in a lane swap, but then you wouldn't send your dual lane to the top side. You would keep them bottom lane if you felt like you had the stronger 2v2, simply so you had the dragon control. And that's just a little bit surprising, but early push goes in favor of Gambit, as we often see. Pushing it down, no relic stacks actually being used, except for one. Sorry, one being used by Nisbet. So the push for Gambit, but remember Leona can engage onto an Annie, especially around level 6 when she's very immobile, the Annie. Lock her down, following by the jungler, and you have a kill for yourself.
Traditionally immobile Deficio, but Eddie's got boots.
He got boots, and he can dodge everything.
I do also want to highlight Betsy in this mid lane, coming up against Corey. Corey, of course, returning to the LCS after a brief hiatus. And we knew Betsy from his Challenger games as an assassin player. This is a champion pick and a playstyle that requires a lot of communication with the rest of his team. And remember, this is his first game on the big stage.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fun matchup in the mid lane, because some teams like to refer to Ezreal as a discount version of Xerath. Because you want to, again, play around this mid-game power spike with the Trinity Force for Ezreal with the long-range poke to take down these turrets, fast push them down. Xerath just does it better. What Ezreal does offer instead is better skirmish potential and roaming as well from his lane. I'll probably take him in a 2-on-2 fight where you can dodge the stun from a Xerath fairly easily. That's one of the reasons people like the Ezreal mid lane over the Xerath, because he's going to get outscaled. I mean, Corey late game is going to be a complete monster.
Well, we'll see if Corey can make it to the late game, whether or not Gambit can get any early pressure down. Something that we didn't really touch on in picks and bans is Horo locking in that Rek'Sai. It's actually the first time that we've seen him play the Queen of the Xerxai, and considering how strong Rainover was a few minutes ago in a actually near identical situation. It was the same dual lane he was playing against. It was the same opponent top laner. Let's see if Horo can have the same level of impact that Rainover did on Fnatic.
He is against the Nidalee, however, who's a bit stronger in the one-on-one than the Jarvan would have been. Diamond, he's spotted. We're going to see a 2-on-2 fight.
Oh, Diamond in a rough position as the Tremor Sense reveals. Horo and Jaywa start the fight out. Jaywa's engaged. He's going to Blade Surge forward before he eats a Javelin toss. Now Diamond thinking about the pounce. Decides not to engage, doesn't want to run the risk under the tower.
Diamond here used the flash actually as soon as he came into the lane when he saw Horo came behind him, cancelling the recall from JWoww. 2-on-2 fight being won by Gambit. It's one of the things you can always do with Renekton. They might even go for the dive here.
Oh, I think they want to look
stun
for
him
the
and land the spear, and then
is it going to work? Spear doesn't connect. JWoww has managed to stun, but Diamond hops in. Their flash is going to be able to get him away. Slice and dice rather. Now we do see Diamond. He's low on mana, but he's taking 2 turret shots. It's at max. The knockup doesn't connect. It is 1 for Horo. Cabo shot's going to get dropped by the next turret shot. Double kill for Horo, but 2 kills for Gambit in a dirty tower dive.
So they did manage to deny a lot of minions from this because they killed JWoww and forced his teleport now back here to pick up the rest of the farm. But they could have just taken that 1 kill and said, that's enough, get a bit of damage on the turret and then back away. Instead though, Gambit looking for the jackpot. Didn't actually get it.
Not this time round, but early pressure. Diamond using that Nidalee, despite it being a 5.3 and despite the fixes, in an aggressive way.
Yeah, and we see a big difference here in how Diamond played the early game compared to Svensson in the last game. Notice how Diamond is saying, okay, I know my dual lane is going to be fine, 2-on-2 on the top side. I'm going to put my focus on Renekton because he's going to play aggressive. He needs to, again, to build up that rage or fury in the matchup. He needs to trade with the Aurelia. He's stronger early on as well. So he's staying on the bottom side to snowball him and make sure he doesn't fall behind to jungle ganks. And that's what Gambit used to pick up these kills. Just a little bit too greedy maybe in the end and actually trading 2 for 2. Denied some farm, however.
Difference in itemization from Cabochard as well. Despite being the only frontline for his team, he's opted to work his way towards a Tiamat most likely. Pickaxe and longsword, the small CS advantage over JWoww should, in theory, be able to outtrade and maintain control of the lane. Diamond may as well get some s'mores and pitch a tent because that's the 3rd time he's going to be moving into this bottom lane. The Cougar and the Crocodile tag team.
And they can do it again. Push in the wave, dive onto the Aurelia here, deny him even more farm, delay his Trinity Force power spike is what you have to do against an Aurelia.
We have
also when there's a Corki getting a Trinity Force, suddenly that becomes very scary because remember for Gambit here, you want to start fast pushing down turrets, and if you don't get a lead early on, if Aurelia gets a Trinity Force and then a tank item by let's say the 25-minute mark, then she can just dive your backline every time. They're onto Eddie, don't top lane.
Eddie cannot dance away from that Zenith Blade We haven't looked at any of the other lanes at all, primarily because of how much the junglers have been involved in the bottom. 2 very quick true shot barrages. I want to go back to this double AD comp that Gambit have put together. Betsy, you know, he's picked himself Ezreal. Dexter actually had a fantastic tweet earlier today. A series of tweets actually talking about teams. There we go. Should just go back to press R comps, learn the basics of shot calling. And we'll see whether or not Gambit can make that work. Typical, we call the tweets up, and JWoww is going to get run down. Quickly to round up that team comp. Without having team knowledge of how composition should be played out, it's a very long process. It requires effort. Gambit are trying that very difficult team composition with a substitute. And yes, they seem to be okay in this laning phase, but that's because of Diamond's ganking. And we really need to see how Betsy plays around the rest of the Gambit squad.
Yeah, what he can do, because right now he's actually got pushed in that mid lane, starting Flasks for some more sustain, knowing he was going to be in a bit of trouble against the Xerath. So that wave is going to be pushed in. Should be a fairly decent back time as well for both the mid lanes. No early tier from Betsy. Might do the Nuke Dog route where he goes back into Spice and instant mana immune instead and starts stacking that early. So it means you get the more mana faster. Oh, sorry, it means that you get a bit more damage just when you buy the item instead of the tier, which doesn't offer you any combat stats, but it delays your more mana for the late game or the later stages of the game. So you delay your own power spike a little bit, just become slightly stronger in the early game instead.
Well, we did see the roam from Edward thanks to those boobs. Not really going to work out. There is the early mana immune that you were talking about. We'll see how quickly he can get up to Mura mana. Every time we catch a glimpse of Betsy, he's using that true shot barrage just to keep farming, trying to push Corey further back. Make sure wave's clear.
What he's doing is making sure Corey can get in and get a few hits on the tower every single time the wave is there, because then this tower will slowly drop down more and more, and it's a very easy rotation again for MYM to suddenly pick it up when Mr. Rallis decides to just walk into that mid lane. So that's why he's again using it just to farm. He's not trying to control the side lanes like we've seen FLICKR do in Korea. And now again with that mana immune, as we said beforehand, will make him stronger now, but delays more mana for later when he really wants to group up with the Graves as well.
Well, I think we do need to give some praise here to Pinoy and Edward. Despite Eddie starting with a pair of shoes, no combat stats, it's actually him and Pinoy that have come out of this laning phase.
You do have the Graves into a Corki, so that lane matchup is pretty good for you.
Nisbet has found himself a Crocodile. Dominus is out, but Horo's on the board again. That's his 3rd kill of the game. Nisbet, just as we were praising, or rather calling you out for not necessarily punishing Edward, managed to put a kill on the board. That was well done.
That was a nice little swap around for MYM, but JWoww, he's in trouble.
Well, Flash Tippers comes out from Eddie. He's going to be forced to flash away, but Gambit have got themselves control of the tower. They will most likely lose this dragon in reply, as Betsy goes for a godlike steal, but there's no vision, so not even going to throw it out. We'll take a glimpse at that top tower in a moment. I think it should go down. So trading global gold for the dragon buff.
Yeah, trading him here. Gambit is a team who doesn't care about dragons at all. They want to get global gold for themselves. In pretty much every game they play, they only take the dragon if it's free. If they just want a team fight and it's up, then they go for it. Otherwise, they're happy making this trade for themselves. Now again, you can send Pinoy, who's sitting on BFSO pickaxe, because he got that farm, he got the tower as well, so he's still a lot stronger than the Corki. Gambit needs to use this now to control that lane for himself. Even though there's no tower, once you push the wave down, all the way down to the tier 2 turret of MYM, then he goes to the mid lane, and he starts pushing that one in, chipping away on these turrets here, because Gambit needs to get the outer turrets down.
So Gambit gonna be trying to defend this bottom lane. Pinoy may be in trouble. Look at the pressure from the rest of MYM in that tri-bush. I saw Oro and Nisbet. They're going to decide to not engage. JWoww's caught out. The pounce, the takedown. JWoww's putting damage onto Cabashard. Cabashard forced to flash away. It will be Aurelia being dropped. And the tag team of the Crocodile Cougar with another kill on the board.
Just keep ganking the lane with Cabashard. There's no wards for MYM to try and spot it. Horo, though, he wants to try and go for Eddie. He used the ulti down. They got him spotted, now cleared out the tunnel as well. Still staying around. It's going to be a risky dive if he goes for it.
Yeah, that tower not going down is quite a big win for Gambit. Pinoy defending it by blowing his collateral, his buckshot, everything on Mr. Rolls. And MYM, you know, we touched on the fact that their team comp can scale well, but they are starting to fall quite heavily behind. 2,000 gold. Let's see what Horo can do. He's going to get spotted out by the ward. I'm going to see him going in. Knock-up lands onto Pinoy. The solar flare went way wide. It's Pinoy that's the one that's taking all the damage. Summon a heal from Mr. Rolls. Slice and dice through minions, but a good stun from Nisbet is going to prevent Cabochard from going further. And that's a very zombified Tibbers. Not able to find more targets.
No, so early teleport from Cabochard. Looking to try and cancel it. We're looking for more kills. So this means Gambit now needs to get control of this jungle on the bottom side with the 5 members. JWoww still trying to farm. He's really been shut down by Diamond and Cabochard. They're looking for Horror here. Trevor.
She's gone.
So, you just saw the enemy top lane and teleport to the bottom lane. You even see him running with the team into your own jungle. Because you had the minions before and you had Nisbet as well spotting them. You're down to 30% HP. Why on earth do you start your Raptor camp? Why don't you just back away knowing they're there? I don't understand. Deficio
is left speechless as Horo getting caught out makes it a small Gambit continue to take advantages. They're going to take their 3rd tower of the game.
You just gave Gambit everything they wanted. Control of the bot lane, control of the jungle, and another turret for themselves. So this mid lane now is going to be the next target. And they can just group up again. 4 members have Cabochard sit while he actually doesn't have teleport. So now 5 members in this case. Push it down, and MYM have to move in themselves to try and wave clear it. Otherwise the tower's going to go down as well. You just completely open up the map for them.
3,000 gold down. And some very, very questionable moves from Meet Your Makers. Nisbet standing right in front of Gambit, despite the fact that his jungler just died a moment ago to Cabochard. Cabochard's Renekton. Got some damage, got some tankiness being built up. And working his way towards being a very scary looking Renekton.
We're going to see their Rod of Ages again on Diamond. So it makes him weaker now in the mid game. But then once he scales up fully towards the late game, that's where he's going to get the benefits from it. So it's a very unique build he's running. Nobody else is doing it. Everyone goes like full damage. Try and be as strong as possible when you get to the mid game, like Magus, maybe early Void stuff coming in. But not for Diamond in this case with the Rod of Ages again. Only problem for Gambit is still the wave clear on MYM. So if they go 5 mid lane, Corey is able to clear those waves very, very easily.
I'm very glad you mentioned that. I was just about to bring it up. Meet Your Makers, despite being down, do have the tools they need to stall the game out. Corki plus Xerath, plus even Irelia's ultimate, can be used very effectively.
Yeah, but Rylis is in the bot lane, so
they're not in position. They're not in position. Corey was way behind. He's only just made it into lane. Mr. Rolls didn't respond. Gambit outplaying MYM with some great positioning.
So I know Rylis can get the bot lane turret here, but you had the TP advantage, so why don't you put your Corki in the mid lane with the Xerath? And you don't push away if you don't care about this turret right now. It's so low anyway, you're going to get it later. And you just wave clear, and you use your Aurelia to 1-4 split push, because if Cabochard goes up there to try and stop him one-on-one, well then suddenly MYM with this Leona pick, remember, not the Janna pick, can just engage the mid lane, have the teleport coming from JWoww and a 5 versus 4, and suddenly you're straight back into the game. Instead, they actually allowed Gambit not to be punished for not having a teleport and get a turret as well for it.
So again, more mistakes here from Meet Your Makers. We need to see if they can claw it back. They've lost 4,000 gold to their opponents in that lead. Teleport will be up in a little while for Cabochard. But if you compare the item differences, thanks to those assists in early towers rather, JWoww still got the makings of a Trinity Force, still looking for his first big spike.
Yeah.
And he's simply not there yet. Rod of Ages completed at 16 minutes for Diamond, thanks to those 2 kills.
Pretty good timing then.
That's 3 minutes slower than a mid lane Rod of Ages or a top lane Rod of Ages. So he's going to be ecstatic with that.
Very good start for him, and really like how they just put full focus on shutting down the new guy, JWoww and Aurelia. Delay his Trinity Force, as you just mentioned before here. You want to get around again 15-16 minutes is standard timing for it. Not going to happen in this game. And again with MYM falling behind now, because they lost these turrets here. Dragon is spawning in 4 seconds. Gambit can move in and set up for it. They have 2 pink wards, 2 double upgraded trinket totems as well for both Diamond and Cabochard here. So putting a lot of focus on the wards, because they have that goal lead and they can engage with Eddie. He has flash ready as well.
Well, let's touch on some of the items as we do build up. You can see Betsy got himself those Lucidity boots as well as Mana Crystal, so maybe working towards Iceborne Gauntlet. So not being an AD carry, moving the caster route is actually something that Tabs mentioned earlier today. When those Ezreal's not going a traditional AD carry route, relying on their Mystic shots, relying on the poke and the harass. We'll see if it works out for Pinoy.
Yeah, you can see Betsy actually going, again, Iceborne Gauntlet, so putting more focus on on kiting in these fights here, then straight up like all-inning a target with the Trinity Force we would otherwise see. But that was just a free dragon for Gambit. Moving down, plays a few wards. MYM knew they couldn't walk in and face check them, so just standard play from them.
Something I want to highlight, look at Gambit moving through the jungle. Last week, the same Gambit team was invading and stepping out of position alone. Pinoy, in a post-game interview, even said, I made mistakes. I was overconfident and moved around. We are going to see that little blue trinket being used. Nisbet and Mr. Rolls, they're about to run into a whole lot of trouble, but back away just in time.
Just sitting back at their own turret. They're still waiting. It's actually exciting.
Exciting?
It is.
It's not the word I would use, Deficio.
It is. Look at Corey.
They're on a hunt. Corey's not going anywhere. Betsy's the one that's in trouble. He's about to find everybody.
What? Wow.
Itsy Bitsy Spider gets squashed under the boot of Meet Your Makers. But what will this cost MYM? Gambit.
All right, Corey recall. Go down and clear this. Or does he have ulti? He does not have ulti.
He used it to kill Bitsy.
They're moving down. They're forcing them away. It's fine. So Gambit was setting up the trap. They're waiting for someone to face check. And then Betsy actually got surprised because, well, why would Nisbet be standing there in the first place anyway?
The MYM trap was greater than the Gambit trap. And it was a kill credit, again, going to Horo's Rek'Sai. We touched on that Rek'Sai pick. It wasn't necessarily impactful in the laning phase, but with all of the kills and the gold in his back pocket, Horo's going to need to find some engages on these 280 carries. He's going to need to try find a way past this Iceborne Gauntlet that Betsy's going to be completing in a few minutes.
Oh, Nisbet now finally actually walked into the bush and flashed away because Gambit was no longer waiting there.
This has become a game of guess which bush is the death bush. And Gambit again unable to find the targets. But this is a weakness of their comp. Unless Eddie can stun somebody up or Cabochard can run them down, there's not really a lot of opportunities for them.
Very true. Again, they're going to lose in terms of the poke damage against a Zeref and a Corki. You don't really have, again, fast pushing abilities on a tower. Graves with the fairly short range. Obviously, the Renekton won't really add anything there. So again, you can't really group up as 5 and just start walking down a lane, because then Zeref and Corki will beat you. So they're looking for the picks instead, but decided not to actually really look towards the side lanes, more like, let's create a pick in this jungle. And MYM said, well, if I never walk into my own jungle, I'm never going to face check anyone. And it actually worked for them. They got killed for it, bought a bit more time. The side lanes have been farmed nicely. There was a big wave for Mr. Riles before. Now Hori just needs to not be caught out.
Well, we'll see if he does. That's a stun from Eddie. Those Moby Boots doing work. True Shot Barrage connects from Betsy. He predicts the movement. Ignite is ticking away. The jump is dodged. Here comes Cabochard. Dominus not ticking. Horo on 200 HP manages to escape. What can Gambit take from this? Dragon is not up. Baron is 1.5 miles away. Gambit really committed to that kill, unable to secure it. Flashes blown from 3 members of Gambit.
And then we go back into MYM defending their turrets. No picks for them. They really want to create them here. I just want to see them again. We talk about this so often. Take one lane and slow push it. Take one lane with your Renekton. Have the 3 or 4 other guys walking in the jungle like they actually did before off Gambit here. And then because it's the tier 2 turrets, MYM is forced to go back to base and like run past the inhibitor turrets if they want to go and defend these tier 2. If you have the entire jungle warded on the top side, between the top lane and the mid lane, that's why Gambit can actually sit and wait in a death bush and just have them face check them, or always lose the minions, or at least take damage on their turrets, the tier 2 ones in the top and mid, because they are so slow at moving around through their own base. That should be the play for Gambit here. Top and mid is your focus. Slow push the bottom lane. It's too far into the inhibitor anyway. And then you can create your picks.
Well, let's see if they agree. Nomad's Medallion picked up for Eddie, working his way towards more engage. We do see the Iceborne Gauntlet completed for Betsy. So the kite and fight is there. And, you know, it's this weird mixture of all in from Eddie and sort of back off from Betsy.
So I quite like Eddie going for full mobility on Annie. We have seen like tank Annie from Unlimited. Vander does it as well from time to time. So I like the mobility here because he's going to be the main engage. He's the only one who can actually start a fight. You're not going to be really too afraid of the Renekton. Well, you will be afraid, but you're going to see him coming at least.
Going to be able to react to his engage, I suppose. One thing I do want to highlight is, Diamond on this Nidalee, another very strong performance where 22 minutes in, he's almost got a stacked Rod of Ages. Very positive impact in the early game. And he simply hasn't lived up to expectations this year on champions other than Nidalee. However, in the last few games, it feels like Diamond has found renewed vigor, renewed ability to impact the game, and it is helping Gambit. They've got this unique team comp. They're losing their lead a little bit, but they still have control, mostly.
Because again, for Gambit here, they don't know how to break into the pace of MYM, and there's not a death push, but
don't have
there's a ward on it.
any sweepers available, so not going to be able to clear the vision out. Take a look at the vision on behalf of Gambit. The bottom half of the map is littered. It looks like a Christmas tree with all those lights.
It's gonna give them a dragon, that's great, but those wards itself, because you have to push all the way into this inhibitor turret, shouldn't be the tactic for Gambit. Instead, mid and top lane, we get back to it after. MYM here trying to take something because they knew that dragon was lost. I like this play actually. Get an objective elsewhere while Gambit were basically doing dragon.
The gold lead is decreasing. 1,700 gold in favor of Gambit. 4 towers to 3. So the outer turrets are all down on behalf of Gambit's side. And again, when we come to this pushing, we come to the play, MYM have got the wave clear they need.
Exactly. So reset the game now for Gambit. Have that wave in the bottom lane, push back to them. Start again at the push. For 4 guys mid lane, Kabushat top lane. He's gonna lose one-on-one to JWoww at the moment. That's why, again, as long as you control the mid lane, you can just roam up to JWoww if he stays overextended. So you force him now to back away, allowing Kabushat to push down the wave on the top side. You completely ward up around Baron and the blue buff of MYM. And again, you have that fast route between the mid lane and the top lane to take down these last 2 turrets. You don't have to worry about the wave clear because Xerath will be sitting in the mid lane with the Corki. And then you can take the top turret. That's how you can open up the map. And then suddenly you start baiting out this Baron now, forcing MYM then to move in and actually take the fight, where they have to face check you with this Annie with the flash tippers. And that's how you take them away from the turrets, away from this wave clear, into straight up fights. But Gambit has just been running around on the bottom side of the map for the last 10 minutes, where MYM is never going to move in because they're just going to set an inhibitor and wave clear anyway.
And if you look back to Gambit's victory last week over Elements, it was actually punishing Elements in the jungle that allowed Gambit to win the game, that allowed Gambit to regain control. So if Gambit can find that same mixture with Nidalee leading the way, which is what Diamond did, throwing out those javelins from the side lane, running down his opponents, that could be the way they pull themselves back into it. We did see Pinoy pick up that Ghost Blade. Blade of the Rune King getting closer for Mr. Riles. That gold lead becoming next to insignificant. Randians and Triforce picked up for JWoww. So there's been really big item breakpoints for both of the respective teams. But MYM, they're going to be happy with this slower pace.
For sure. I mean, we're missing the key thing for Gambit here. Oracle Lens on 1 or 2 members. Pink wards, again, around that Baron. MYM has been able to, while they don't have a ward now, at least not get completely zoned away from it. They have the Scrying Orb as well completed for Mr. Rales. And there's just been no threat from Gambit to actually start that Baron objective or push 2 lanes at once. So again, MYM has just been able to have that cannon of Xerath, place him in the middle of a lane and say, well, you're not going to get past this guy.
Well, Pinoy couldn't even get into the lane. Took 1 Arcano Pulse and 2 shots of that right of the Arcane. He was forced back. But unfortunately for MYM, there's nothing to take from it. They did get vision into Gambit's jungle, so let's not completely underplay Corey's damage that he put out. And that's also something that you do have to give credit to Corey for. He has individually shown up. His Jace play in particular from 2 weeks ago, I think it was, stands out. And he's got the damage and he's got the squishy opponents to take charge of this game. But to Fisher, we're going to be in for a long one. Because MYM really, really want to play for the late game. Let their team come through the scaling they need. See if Nisbet can land some solar flares.
Yeah, and Gambit simply unable to really push the lead they've had for quite a while.
Well, and maybe that's because of their team comp.
No, well, yes and no. Okay, the team comp doesn't make it easier for them.
Yeah.
They're simply just not playing around the right lanes and the right objectives. They keep again going back to this bottom lane and like they're like, oh, we're gonna bait out this dragon which is not even alive. And then MYM is like, fair enough, we don't care, do whatever you want. It does mean Gambit in about, so we do 6, 12, 18, about 20 minutes time. You should have a 5th dragon. That could be their tactic for them. Next one coming in 1 minute and 40 seconds. So my math was a little bit off because I didn't actually realize it was about to start.
Fair enough. We'll forgive you. You were able to do arithmetic. That's more than we can say from the Challenger casters from
14
yesterday.
minutes instead.
So, managing to work that one out. The pace has slowed to an absolute crawl. Nicho Makers, thanks to forcing Pinoy away, got some deep vision into Gambit's blue buff area of the map. We'll see if they make use of it. Teleport is available for JWoww. With a minute 20 on the clock until the next dragon, you can see Diamond with that upgraded Greater Stealth Totem hopping over the wall to get some vision down into MYM's jungle. And MYM also replying. I'd like to think a fight could break out around this dragon, but with the amount of poke from actually either side, there's the threat that the fight could be over before it begins. They've jumped onto JWoww. JWoww's tanked up a lot, but he's going to flash over the wall. What did they use for that? Tibbers was out. Collateral damage was used, and JWoww has teleport with wards to go to. That could be trouble for Gambit if MYM are decisive in starting that dragon quickly.
Well, ulti from Pinoy should be ready in time. Can't say the same for the flash on JWoww. So another death bush being set up. And again, doesn't really manage to find a kill. The flash is still important, meaning it's a lot more risky for JWoww now to dive the back line of Gambit. Horo now left all on his own, pushing up. He's going to get stunned. Pinoy going for him.
No collateral damage. Pinoy trying to get the auto attacks out. We do hear that Ghost Blade tick from Pinoy. He's going to carry on chasing. There's flashes for both.
Everyone is coming.
Here comes Diamond and Cabo Shard.
Never mind.
But one thing that I do want to highlight, Betsy doing well, CSing effectively, being where he needs to be with this caster zoning Ezreal. More importantly, JWoww's top lane performance for MYM, it has been an improvement over MYM in recent games. So we do see Horo. He's gone in. Dragon secured for Gambit. That is number 3
Back
of
away.
5.
Now the fight for MYM now. Dragon is already gone, so they don't have to take the fight. You want to land the poke first with the Corki and Zeref. They didn't manage to do that. Instead, put the attention on this mid lane here. First time we see MYM really push onto the turrets of Gambit. Should be able to get some damage on it. Actually, no, have to be careful. It's going to be a flank from Diamond, like he did against Elements.
Yeah, and it's what worked for Diamond against Elements. He was able to find the Javelins in that game. Unfortunately, not able to find them this time around. You said that last Bispo was picked up by Betsy, so those Mystic shots are going to hurt just a little more. Cabashard controlling these side lanes. Gambit have run out of steam. They had a decent laning phase. They earned themselves an advantage with Cabashard Renekton. They got towers, and then they hit the wave clear wall that Nicho Makers are put down. So for Gambit on their 3-game winning streak at 30 minutes, I don't think they're looking that great.
And for Gambit right at this moment, what they're saying is basically, okay, there's a lot of wave clear. We can't really push on their turrets. Well, we already got 3 dragons, so we don't have to do anything. We can wait for that 5th one. But it's just so risky, because again, it allows MYM really to get back from a fairly poor early game. And it allows Corey to get to the late game on a Zeref, making it even harder for Gambit to really do anything. And once we get more armor as well on JWoww, against the likes of an Ezreal and a Graves, it's going to be very tough for them to take him down. So it's going to be more about Gambit suddenly like kiting around in the fights like they did against Elements, where we had Diamond jumping around on one side, Betsy with the Iceborne Gauntlet, with the slow obviously on the other side, and just trying to split up MYM and really try and get onto the backline suddenly with the Corki and Zeref. So we're going to have to see. The late game team will be very different for the two teams. MYM's side, it's all about not getting flanked around. And Gambit is about not getting poked down.
So there's one beautiful part of MYM's comp that's going to play into their favor if Gambit go for the Dragon victory. If Nisbet can get a solar flare when Gambit are on Dragon 4 or Dragon 5, that could be game changing. But there's so much pressure on Nisbet to lock members of Gambit down. The only benefit being, if Gambit are focusing on the objective, they have less opportunity to kite. They have less opportunity to move around. And Nisbet's solar flares have been wide this game.
Just a little bit. One of them actually hit, and that was a good one.
But with 32 minutes in, they needed a little more.
Danes take their time. It's not about what you do in the start of the game, Trevor Quickshot Henry. It's about the 5-man solo flare that comes later that will win you the entire game.
We will have to see in the late game. Elements were punished for a mistake against Giants in game 1 of the day. We'll see if Gambit or Meet Your Makers get punished, because the tools are there. So, Dragon should be spawning in the next 2 to 3 minutes. And that's going to be where we'll have more action. JWoww's found Cabo Shard. Banshee's bailed pop. There's a lot of tankiness and a lot of trading back and forth. We do see Horo's caught out by Betsy and Pinoy. Now JWoww, he decides he wants to fight. Eats a javelin toss. JWoww, you've totally gone the wrong way. And Pinoy finds a kill. That was not WoW at all. Summon a heal forced out of Corey. Betsy is running Horo down. Mystic Shock goes wide. Solar Flare slows Betsy. Javelin from the background. That's a massive jump from Diamond. 2-man stun from Eddie. Gambit find 4 kills in quick succession. And they peel for Baron.
Straight for the Baron itself.
What just happened?
I'm not sure what JWoww was trying to do. I mean, he was setting up a flank, but as soon as he was spotted by Cabo Shard, he tried to like run away, and then he saw Diamond, he went back, and just a bit of a, I don't know.
Deficio, the definition of a flank to me does not include running into 5 members. This is the worst guerrilla warfare tactic that I've ever seen.
Very true. And Gambit managed to actually punish it. Chase for some more kills. In the end, they get the stun onto Corey. Let's see, it's Cabo Shard flashing in. There we go with Diamond.
Deficio
Should have been a Baron as well.
Diamond was such a good leap, pounce rather, in that Cougar form. 4 kills, a Baron. Did they get any towers from that one? Not just yet, but they have the ability to push those towers down. And Gambit have completely regained control.
So even though they're Baron now, they still can't go 5-man and just push on 1 tower. So we're actually back to the same as before the Baron was picked up, where Gambit still has to control at least 2 lanes at once that are pushing down with the buffed up minions. Otherwise, MYM can wave clear it. You can maybe dive. There's no flash for Eddie, however, so it can be tough for him to land the Tibbers, or you can wait for the Dragon.
Or you can wait for the Dragon. It's only a minute.
50 seconds for Gambit. Just pushing in a few of the waves. Let's see what they want to do here. Now they actually got the waves pushing at least in mid and top lane. That's it.
Well, we'll see what Gambit decide to do. I know I keep quoting Leviathan.
This is fine.
But it's a process, and Gambit have taken 35 minutes and a Baron buff to start pushing. This is going to be a easily contested tower.
First time they split up in 2 lanes and push them down at the same time. Zeref, the immobile cannon, we can call him, wave flame machine, whatever, stuck in the mid lane. He's not there to defend the turret, and suddenly, yes, I know they had the Baron buff, but then Gambit actually cleared the last, or the top lane tier 2 turret for themselves, and now comes the harder part, where you have to break into the base, where now you no longer have that movement advantage, because you can just move easily from MYM's side between the inhibitors. So Dragon instead can be your target once Baron runs out.
Let's see if Gambit agree with you. Baron still ticking away on the side of Gambit, around a third of the time remaining. We did see Betsy get a little caught by that solar flare in the previous fight, but he single-handedly kept Horo super, super low. MYM sensing, sniffing, smelling Dragon number 4. And they're going to move into range. Diamond is way, way, way away from support.
Way, way, way.
Yeah, I got a bit committed into that one. I got trapped. But what I wanted to say is he didn't have the support of his team until this very second, as Gambit have now grouped up effectively. It's Pinoy that's out of position.
Well, the 280 carries are sitting in the mid lane here, trying to poke each other a little bit. So this should be a Dragon again for Gambit. So MYM, they moved out there, try to land a bit of poke, and now back to their own base.
No faith in a commitment, no calling. MYM just let that one happen despite being grouped up, despite Pinoy not being available. Maybe feeling way further behind than maybe they are. It is a 7,000 gold difference, so let's be fair, and a Baron buff. There's always going to be a difficult team fight, but again, they need Nisbet to engage with the solar flare. Meet Your Makers need to catch someone from Gambit out and not let Gambit use this kite and fight team composition to their advantage.
I don't even think we've seen them use the team comp to kite and fight. They
haven't needed to.
Haven't needed to, yeah. There's not really been any fights going on. Just a lot of lanes being pushed down now, and a lot of dragons being killed. Poor dragons. Nisbet actually onto the diamond here. Can they?
No solar flare available, so Nisbet not going to be able to. It's Gambit that turn it around. Horo's getting chunked down. 2,500 HP. still in his pocket. Solar Flare now available for Nisbet.
Corey's out of mana now. So there goes a lot of the wave clear. Actually see him starting to recall. Okay, then he got the mana back from the ward.
Well, that's back to wave clear. His favor. Going to use it to clear out those minions. Gambit with no more Baron buff, relying on the poke. But look at the side lanes, not under their control. Deficio, you have sung this song 1,000 times already. Gambit need to control more than one lane, and they're simply not doing it at this stage in time.
Well, again, they're waiting for that mighty dragon number 5 before they need to do anything. So for MYM's side, once again, second time in this game, they're pushing away from their own territory in towards Gambit's side. If they can create a pick, they can still win this game, because Gambit has simply not been able to really close out the lead. And now we're going to get a team fight.
That is a massive crocodile. Corey and Nisbet caught out. Solar Flare hits nothing. Nisbet needed to make that count. Eddie is going to be zoning away MYM, and that will cost him his life. Gambit secured 2 in reply for 1. What more can they take? Meteor Makers in full retreat. Betsy arcane shift over the wall, looking for more targets. True Shot Barrage available, trying to snipe Nisbet, not going to connect. Gambit should be able to get the tower.
Get the turret here, and then either you can go to the bottom lane where there's a massive wave being built up, or you can just take this inhibitor as well. They need to break into the base of MYM now. Get 2 inhibitors for this. Then Gambit should be able to close out on the next push.
Absolutely punishing Meteor Maker's decision. MYM finally...
all taking the base gate.
Hey, I thought base gates only worked for your team. Gambit managing to show they can hop, skip, and jump through. Massive, massive minion wave. That's 2 siege cannons sitting with them in reply. Gambit secure the turret, decide not to commit. We do see the Zenith Blade. Pinoy is going to use that QSS to get away. Right to the Arcane, unable to find a kill. Betsy is going to be using the last of his mana, slows down Nisbet. Solar Flare up in a moment
didn't get the reset.
JWoww unable to find the target.
Didn't manage to
Shot
kill
Barrage
the minion.
in return. So Gambit get an inhibitor, they get 2 turrets. Was it 3 turrets actually? And they accelerate their Goldie to 10,000. Baron's up in a minute, Dragon's up soon.
Let's see the fight again here. It's actually again MYM moving into the jungle of Gambit. It's a bit of a weird play because again you don't want to be caught here with a Zeref and a Corki. You want to sit and poke. So once the fight breaks out, Cabochard is a massive tank. He can just dive the backline all he wants. Great tippers from Eddie and fairly easy cleanup from Gambit. And this was basically all they needed. MYM to move away from their own turrets and into a fight.
So 2 things to note. That is exactly how Gambit beat Elements last week, with Diamond from the sides flanking in the jungle with the help of Cabochard. Secondarily to that, Gambit are in the lead and winning because Meteor Makers have simply not put a positive play on the map. They've simply not moved around. They've let Gambit have anything and everything they've wanted. And I want to go back to those Dexter tweets from 30-odd minutes ago. He was talking about how teams need to have a lot of communication. They need to understand how double AD comps work. And Gambit, yes, they're in the lead, but they've not pushed the side lanes. They've not been in control of the map.
It's been nothing but the comps here for Gambit and MYM actually, except for MYM just pushing it down. That's a very one way of saying it.
It's been a long game. It's been a long game.
It's been a long game indeed.
41 minutes, 10,000 gold in the lead, 5 towers in the lead, an inhibitor, 4 dragons to 1. Gambit have got every single number in the green tick on their side of the map. 1 minute to dragon. I think they want it. That being Gambit.
Well, of course. You got 4 dragons already. Why would you stop now? Get Baron, get Dragon, get the game.
Baron, Dragon, and 3 inhibitors. Let's see.
Alright, of course, you have to go for complete domination here.
Every objective, the dream.
This is actually MYM's chance of coming back in this game.
Not anymore, it's not Deficio. MYM have got destroyed. Nisbet with the late solar flare. They're in full retreat. Oro is out, Nisbet is out. Gambit looking for more. Mr. Rolls got no mana. Mystic Shot does not manage to connect. Betsy flashes, does get the second. Last tick of mana working out to get Mr. Rolls. Betsy continues the chase. Diamond is now running down Corey. He pounces in, doesn't find a target. Corey sidesteps the stun. Betsy eats the missile barrage. Gambit have peeled away. They don't want the dragon. That's a 2-man stun from Eddie. Gambit are going to look for the Nexus. They've got the minions in the top and the bottom wave as well as the middle wave. And they are going to lose Betsy, but it's not going to matter. 30 seconds, 50 seconds, 60-second death timers on the side of Meteor Makers. And Gambit, it's not been pretty, but it's going to be a win. That's 4 games in a row for Gambit. after losing their opening 5.
I think it's very clear that they were just missing a bit of the shot calling here. Nick often provides. He's a very smart player, but a win is a win. You have a sub for this week as Nick is out sick. Gambit, while they can't be happy about the game itself, hey, four wins in a row now.
Something else I do want to highlight as we got towards the end of the game there. Every member of Gambit had upgraded their trinkets, 3 of them with those greater stealth totems. Big smiles on the face of Gambit. They've turned their split around. 0-5 in the front half. 4-0 then to close out their first 9 games. They're no longer in that relegation zone, and as Meet Your Makers have to somehow claw it back.
Yeah.
1-8.
Yeah, and again with Giants beating Elements, suddenly they have 3 wins on the board now. This makes it look nearly impossible for MYM with the way at least the games are going for them. And I was just looking at the player camps during the game. Nobody really talks, nobody smiles. Like, you can see this is a team who has a lot of problems, a lot of things they need to sort out. They tried to make a roster change, brought in JWoww, kept again Mimer as an assistant coach to help out Yamato Cannon and the team. So they have a fairly good setup around them. But when it comes to in-game,
it's just not working.
It's just not working. There's no synergy, there's no...
And
no nothing.
At some point, you need to step back and talk about Mr. Alz and Nisbet. JWoww had moments that were good. Horo had moments that were good. Corey's had moments that were good. I simply have not felt that way about Nisbet and Mr. Alz, either as a duo or individuals all that often. 9 games in the spring split. Mr. Alz, who was one of the most touted AD carries from last year, is simply not living up to his pedigree, not living up to expectations that I think he could live up to.
Again, it's the whole, you change support so many times. You went from Mixer to Weebo Failure to Kaseng, who's now on H2K, obviously playing the next game, to Nisbet here. So you change so many supports over 2 splits. Yeah, in a year, 2.5, we can say now. We actually crossed the halfway point of this split. It's very tough to constantly build up synergy and also keep finding support who can actually perform well enough.
Yeah.
Compared to the other dual lanes they are facing. We heard Tab say on the analyst desk how the bottom lanes in Europe are getting better and better. And if you don't improve at the same rate, you are going to get left behind. Basically, you're stuck down here where Nisbet and Mr. Rales find themselves now. It's not looking good enough for them at all. We talked about how Leona came into a bit of a siege comp instead of a Janna. Yeah. There were multiple team fights where the Janna could have worked out really well for them to stop Gambit diving the back line. And yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what Tabs has to say about that. It's the second double AD comp that we've seen today. And for a dive into that Gambit win, let's set up on stage where Pyrotechnics is waiting to talk to Eddie.
Thank you very much. Quick shot now. I am standing here with the Big Eddie himself. First of all, congratulations on 4 wins, really turning your split around. But I wanted to ask you about this composition. You guys picked a very, very coordination-intensive one, and you did it with a sub. Can you walk me through a little bit of why you made that decision?
Thank you for congratulations. And I think we just played so much scrims with Betsy past couple of days. And we noticed that people used to ban a lot of mid laners against us. So one of the choices was to play double AD carry. So we just practiced that, and it just worked out.
It certainly did work out that game, and again, really well played there. I also want to ask you about how having that sub, you said you played a lot of scrims with him, how has it really affected the team dynamic in the interim while Nick is out?
It actually didn't change anything. I was actually feeling like we were playing with Nick, but it was like a different voice.
Well, I suppose when you can trade one in, trade one out, that works pretty well for you. Last question here as well. You seem to have, in recent games, found your serious footing with Pinoy. Can you describe how that's kind of worked out for you in the last 4 games?
I think our synergy is not that perfect. I mean, it's like we still have so much room to improve. We're just playing duo queue all the time. We're just hanging out together and trying to communicate as much as we can.
Thank you very much, Edward. Now we're going to go ahead and send it back to Shocks and Tabs at the analyst desk.
There we go. Thank you so much. Another victory coming in here for Gambit. Very interesting that he said, I didn't really notice that we weren't playing with Nick. It was kind of just like another voice. And you also brought out, it was pretty much the diamond show for a lot of that.
Yeah, I did think Diamond was the one that really carried this game. He managed to make the early game plays, and even in the mid game, he was the one that set up all the action in this game. Edward did talk about having that double AD comp, but I didn't feel that Ezreal really performed that well this game, or at least he didn't have the biggest impact. He just laned and never really roamed at all. I would have maybe liked to even see him play a more aggressive laner, so he could have helped Diamond secure kills and objectives around the map.
What did you think of the build? Because we were watching it together and you called maybe he should get a Trinity Force and meet some damage, but he went for the Iceborne Gauntlet, then the Last Whisperer, well, in the end.
Yeah. So about this build, like Manamune, first, obviously, to get it to stack up fast, and then afterwards you have a choice. You can go Trinity Force, you can go Iceborne Gauntlet. In this game, I would have preferred to see a Trinity Force. I don't think there was a need for an Iceborne Gauntlet in this game. It wasn't too poke focused, so the slow didn't really set up into much, and the Trinity Force would have added a bit more damage, and especially a bit of mid-game strength.
Yeah, they did manage to close it out in the end. As you said, Diamond doing very well. Pinoy getting some kills in the end. Let's quickly touch on MYM. They are struggling. You played versus them a lot last season. And it does seem really that Mr. Rawls is not performing the way we used to see him.
Yeah, we always used to say Mr. Rawls is an elo hell, you know, like his teammates are dragging him down, and he's performing so well in the last season. But now you look, and he's not really impressing anymore. He's just playing his own game, but not really making any flashy plays. And yeah, I don't think he is just on the same level compared relatively to how he was in the last season.
Yeah, we will see if they're able to pick that up. But Gambit, 4-game winning streak, that is fantastic for them. Now, before we take a break, it's time to check in with you guys at home. Earlier, we asked what team has surprised you the most so far this split and why. And here's what you had to say. First, from @TheFreakySane, he writes, Unicorns of Love are definitely a big surprise for me. I knew they were a strong team, but I didn't expect them to be top 3 right now. They're gearing up on stage to take on H2K, and I said Unicorns of Love came out of nowhere and just in top 3 spot.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know what to expect from UL in the start. I really didn't. And then they came on, and they not only showed me innovative gameplay with unique picks, but they also showed me really strong individual play. So they don't only win by cheesing their opponents with like picks that they don't expect, they also manage to just outplay them at every turn.
Yeah, and build a strategic plan around those picks as well. Our second tweet is from @Scorch13NLG. It has to be Elements, the most dominant team in Europe last split. Adds a powerhouse AD carry and falls flat so far this split. Well, apologies for that one.
Well, yeah, it's me being replaced, obviously, so yeah. Like I said before, I think the Elements, their problems, they're still there. The change just brought in a different type of AD player, but the changes, the problems surrounding the team, they're still there. Nothing has been really fixed, and that's why they're looking further now. They're trying to get in Kevin and make some more changes.
You said before that you thought that the Kevin would change the dynamic in that team coming in there with a loss like they suffered today. How are they going to have to come back from that?
Well, it's definitely a bit of a mental blow. You know, they were so far ahead with their new player doing so good and then just dropping the ball and losing in a really like weird fashion like that. It was really defeating. You saw Froggen like being really down about it, and yeah, the whole team suffered a bit of a mental blow, but I think they'll realize they did so well this game. They did so many good things. The loss is just like the defeat screen, you know? They actually did really good in the game itself, so there comes that realization.
Yeah, let's hope they can go off that. The third tweet is from @XVBloodVX, tweeted, Fnatic has surprised me the most. I was nervous when I heard 4 players were changed, but they've shown a strong split so far and taking down SK Gaming on top of everything.
Yeah, Fnatic coming into this, I definitely didn't know what to expect because they changed so much. They got new players on like almost every position. Just Yellow started building up the new team. They even got in foreigners, like 2 Korean players. And you never really know how that's going to end up. So coming into this split, they've actually surprised me with how good their team play and communication is. Especially because they have 2 foreigners. They do manage to communicate really well, and they seem to be bonding as a team really well as well.
Yep, absolutely. Our last tweet comes from @GeniusTro. Definitely SK. Since I began watching LCS, I've never seen them as a top-notch team. They have by far beaten my expectations. There we go again.
Yeah, of course, the by far joke. SK here, you know, last season they were also a really strong team, top contender, but they just lacked kind of the individual skill. And now with these 2 replacements, Forgiven and Fox coming in, they still have the same strategic prowess, the same strategies around the ball lane especially, but now they just have so much individual talent to add to that and individual outplay that they're just unstoppable.
Yeah, unstoppable. Fnatic did beat them, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a blow. As you say, they have that individual talent in there. Thank you guys very much for sharing your insight. And as a thank you, you've earned your own Firecracker Jinx skin in celebration of the Lunar New Year. Now remember, you can always stay in the conversation by tweeting at LOL Esports and using that hashtag LCS. Now we're going to step away for a few, but when we return, it is our final match of the day between two squads on the rise, the Unicorns of Love and H2K Gaming.
MYM and Gambit have both had shaky starts to the split, but it's Gambit that has turned things around. We do see Diamond is low on mana, but he's taken 2 turret shots. It's at max. The knockup doesn't connect. It is 1 for Horo. Cabo shot's going to get dropped by the next turret shot.
Seraph, no, man. I got you, I got you. No, man.
Rex,
yeah, go. Fresh. Nice. Got him, go.
Nice, go.
Nice.
That is a massive crocodile. Corey and Nisbet caught out. Solar Flare hits nothing. Nisbet needed to make that count. Oh, not anymore. It's not Deficio. MYM have got destroyed. Nisbet with the late Solar Flare. They're in full retreat. That's 4 games in a row for Gambit after losing their opening 5.